Some days just don't turn out the way you want, no matter how hard you try. You'd rather crawl under the covers and hide from it all. But being the head of the household, the weight of responsibility is always on your shoulders, even when you wish it wasn't. My day kicked off abruptly at 7 a.m. when the local cops called to report a break-in at my pub. Rushing to get out the door, I discovered my car had a flat tire, just to add to the mess after getting only 4 hours of sleep. I borrowed my wife's car and headed to the bar, only to find the place ransacked, liquor gone, the front door smashed. It seemed like we'd be closed for at least 2 weeks. The police filed it as a robbery, and after the insurance guy took his notes and photos, I boarded up the door and waited for repairs. Thankfully, insurance would cover the losses until we reopened. Around lunchtime, as I was about to get back into my wife's car to head home, I heard someone shout, "Michelle, wait." I turned around to see a man running toward me, only to stop short when he realized he had the wrong person. He mumbled an apology and hurried off. Later, at home, I told my wife, Michelle, about the strange encounter, but she didn't recognize the guy either. When she asked why I had taken her car, I explained about the bar break-in and my flat tire. After a quick sandwich, I got to work fixing the valve on my truck's tire. Once that was done, I swung by a store to grab some new jeans, t-shirts, and a ball cap. When I got back home, I found a note from Michelle saying she'd gone shopping. My shifts on Friday and Saturday nights usually meant I didn't get home until the morning, but I had some time before heading out, so I decided to shave my beard for the first time in 12 years. The change was shocking. I barely recognized myself in the mirror with my wild curls and fresh face. But despite the drastic look, I decided to check out some of the other bars in town that night. Michelle wasn't home when I left, so I snuck into my own bar's back entrance, swapped into my new clothes, and even threw on a pair of reading glasses. With the clean-shaven glasses, I looked like a completely different person, almost like I was back in college. Since my truck was too familiar around town, I called for a cab and headed over to a rental place where I picked up a low-profile white Ford. I started at the north end of town, hopping from bar to bar, checking out the atmosphere, the staff, the clientele, and the prices at each spot. I was taking mental notes for when my own place reopened. After grabbing what info I needed at each stop, I'd leave, usually without even finishing my drink. It was at the 7th bar, a college hangout down by the river, where everything took a turn. Walking into the place, which was called Rivertown Brandon's, I spotted Michelle, dressed in a revealing outfit, dancing provocatively with another guy. My blood boiled when I realized it was the same man who had called out earlier that day. It hit me right then, she had been lying to me. As a bartender, I know not to judge people by their appearance alone, but I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. I found a seat, thanks to some guy at a table offering me one if I bought him a drink. So I ordered a double gin and tonic and observed. They were regulars at this bar, and the guy next to me said that weekends were always packed with college kids. I casually asked about Michelle, without giving away my connection to her, and the redhead at the table told me her name was Michelle Corbin. She was often seen here with her boss, a guy named Rob Hendricks. They were more than just co-workers, according to her. The redhead hinted that Michelle's husband was usually out of town for work, and that she and Rob always left together before the last set of the band. I thanked them, bought another round, and slipped out. When I got outside, I went straight to Michelle's car and let the air out of her tires. That's when I got caught. A woman named Isabella, who had been at the bar with the others, confronted me. She said she had noticed me earlier and figured something was off. "Your face gave it away," she said. "You were struggling to hide your feelings all night, and the way you were watching her, it all clicked when I saw you messing with her car." "How'd you know who I was?" I asked. "I didn't, but your questions earlier got me thinking, and now I'm certain." "You're Michelle's husband, aren't you?" she replied. We exchanged a few more words, and I admitted I was scoping out the competition under the guise of visiting bars, but really, I was tracking Michelle. She handed me the keys to the rental and said she didn't want to get involved if anyone else showed up. We agreed to talk later. I hopped in the car and followed Isabella back to her place, a quiet modular home just outside town. Another car was already in the driveway, and Isabella explained it belonged to her friend Emily, who had given her a ride to fend off unwanted attention at the bar. Inside, the house was spotless and barely lived in. She grabbed a couple of beers, and we sat down to talk. "Thanks for stepping in back there," I said. I was starting to lose it. Isabella smiled and said, "They've got a regular room at the Starlight Inn over on 4th Street. If you follow them after closing, you'll see. She shows up in her work clothes but leaves looking like she's ready for a night out. By the time she gets home, she's back in jeans. How do you know all this? I asked. My brother manages the place. He's on duty from Wednesday to Sunday, so he's seen it all. They've been at it for over a year now, Isabella replied. Michelle told him you work offshore, gone for months at a time, hinting that you have an open relationship. I was stunned, and she could see it on my face. You really had no idea, did you? She added. No, I didn't, I admitted. First, I need proof. Second, her parents helped me out with the bar, I still owe them $20,000. Isabella thought for a moment. I'll talk to my brother, see what he can do. Maybe they have security footage, or he could get a hold of her key card. That would be helpful, I said. I'll see him next Friday at our parents' anniversary dinner. We can talk then, she offered, and we swapped numbers before I left. I wanted to witness their reaction to her flat tire, just to confirm what Isabella had told me. I went back to the bar just before closing time, relieved that the parking lot was well lit. Not long after, Michelle and Rob came out, holding hands and sharing quick kisses. He unlocked her car, but then they noticed the flat tires. All of them were flat. While I couldn't hear what they were saying, their body language made it clear this wasn't just a casual fling, it was a full-on relationship. Rob called for a tow truck, and within 20 minutes, someone showed up to inflate the tires. They drove off, heading straight for the Starlight Inn, just as Isabella had mentioned. Later, Michelle came home with damp hair and a shopping bag from Macy's. It was a bitter pill to swallow, realizing she'd been betraying me all this time. I returned the rental car, took a cab to pick up my truck, and got home around 5 a.m., crashing on the couch. Michelle had no idea her affair was now out in the open. I met Michelle on a double date years ago, and I was immediately drawn to her captivating eyes. Despite her strict father, she and I hit it off, and I started visiting her every weekend, even though my dad didn't approve at first. But I was persistent, and eventually, he came around. While Michelle pursued her degree, I took online business courses and worked. By the time she was a sophomore, we were engaged, and not long after that, my bar came up for sale. I remember her father coming with us to check it out, and we discussed renovating the old, outdated place. He agreed to lend me the money from his retirement fund at a 6% interest rate and even helped out with the renovations. Together, we turned the place around, cutting labor costs, and over the next decade, I brought the loan down from $200,000 to just under $20,000, while doubling the bar's value. Her parents had been pressuring us to start a family, but Michelle always hesitated. That's when I realized she didn't see me as father material. I managed to secure a commercial loan and paid off the rest of her father's loan, with him even returning the final payment, happy with how much profit he had made from selling the place. With his help, I cleared the bank loan too, leaving only a small overdraft. We were in the middle of making more repairs and upgrades to the bar, but Michelle was too wrapped up in her own world to notice. Friday night, I went back into disguise. I messed with the exhaust on her car and drained the gas tank on Rob's company vehicle. Inside their favorite bar, they were oblivious to everything but each other, drawing attention with how openly they flirted. Isabella stuck close, offering support. I bribed the bartender to get footage from the security cameras and made sure he kept quiet. He asked what my plan was, and I slipped him some cash and told him, just between us. After verifying my ID, he grinned, eager to help expose the cheating duo. He even hinted at spiking their drinks with something special at an after-hours party they were planning for next Saturday, right in time for my bar's reopening on Thursday. That night, as a storm raged outside, I pretended to be asleep when Michelle came home at 3 a.m. I heard her talking on the phone for a long time. The next morning, I woke up early and found her phone unlocked. She hadn't deleted her messages with Rob. One of them stood out. It was to her sister. "Sis, I need an alibi for last night. I'm going to say I was with you." I snapped a picture of the message with my own phone. Later, Michelle claimed she'd been at her sister's house on Tuesday. Isabella texted me, suggesting we meet at a truck stop off the highway. When I arrived, she greeted me with a smile, snapping a quick photo for her contacts. Even with my new mustache and goatee, Michelle hadn't recognized me. "Hey," I greeted her, noticing she seemed in a good mood. "Mike," she corrected. "You'll be happy once you see the info I've got. My brother asks if you can cover the printing costs." We ordered breakfast, eggs, sausage, and bacon for me, a cheese omelet for Isabella. We both had orange juice and coffee. Isabella handed me a folder full of information. Michelle had her own key card for Rob's hotel room and had been using it for over 6 months. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, always at 7 p.m. I showed Isabella the text message from Michelle. "What's your plan?" she asked. "Are you going to file for divorce?" "There's a party next Saturday for Michelle and Rob." "I'm hoping to get plenty of video evidence," I said. "Once I've got it all, I'll show her father exactly why she doesn't want kids with me. I'll also serve her with divorce papers in their hotel room, and it'll all be caught on camera." "When you're ready, email it to me," Isabella replied, curiosity in her voice. "But why are you doing this?" "Rob's corporate car is trashed, and Michelle's car smells awful from the tampered exhaust. I figure the company might think an angry husband is to blame," I said, trying to hide my satisfaction. "It's almost poetic," Isabella chuckled. "Should I mention you?" I laughed. "You're something else, Isabella." "Yeah, go ahead, use my name." Later, I thought about everything and knew I was playing my cards just right. I had even discreetly switched out Michelle's birth control pills with sugar pills, buying myself some time. But then, my luck took a bad turn. One night, on my way to work, someone ran a red light, totaling my truck and causing a massive pileup. Rescuers had to use the jaws of life to get me out, and I was taken to the hospital for a full checkup. Michelle and her parents showed up after 6 hours of tests, and they finally released me, telling me to rest for 2 days and avoid driving for a week. Michelle stayed home to take care of me, and by Saturday, I was itching to get back to the bar. While getting ready, I overheard Michelle making plans for a night out. I asked her to drop me off at the bar, pretending I needed to check on some changes. That night, the bar did double its usual sales, thanks to the new cook I'd hired. We sold out, and we were starting to attract more lunch customers with our daily specials, which fit perfectly with the theme of the bar. The restaurant closed at 8 p.m., and after that, we only offered pickled eggs or sausages to the late-night crowd. An older man, retired but still full of energy, approached me with a business proposal. He wanted to partner up by running his own kitchen out of the bar, asking for 10% of the profits. His homemade dishes, like shepherd's pie and Irish stew, were a hit with the customers, and it wasn't long before we needed to hire more kitchen staff. Around 8:30, Isabella and her friend Emily strolled in, both dressed to impress in Irish-themed outfits. They grabbed a table, enjoying the live folk music and classic Irish tunes. Isabella's green outfit caught plenty of eyes, and I decided to treat them to some specialty drinks. "On the house," I said with a grin. "Hey, Mike," Isabella said with a smile. "Thanks for remembering our favorites." "Oh, this is my friend Emily." I shook Emily's hand as she excused herself for a moment. She ordered a ginger ale, while I stuck to my rule of not drinking in my own bar, a promise I'd kept for over a decade. When she returned, Isabella slid over to sit next to me, while Emily didn't seem bothered, taking the seat across from us. Out of nowhere, Isabella dropped a bombshell. "Emily, this is Mike, Michelle's ex-husband." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yeah, it's true," I confirmed. "When we first met, I was just wandering around town while my bar was being renovated. Isabella caught me doing something I shouldn't have, and after a quick chat, I gave her a ride home. We've been friends ever since." "He had no clue about what his wife was up to while he was working," Isabella added. "That's why we're here tonight. I didn't want him to be alone." "Why did you pick this place?" Emily asked. "It's kind of fancy." I chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment, though it wasn't what I was going for when I designed it. I just wanted a nice place to bring my girlfriend." "Mike didn't just build this bar, he owns it," Isabella mentioned with a smile. Emily looked surprised. Soon, the place filled up, and our table was packed. Isabella and Emily kept me dancing all night, much to the delight of my staff, who noticed how unusually crowded the dance floor had become. The music volume was perfect, loud enough to enjoy but not so much that it drowned out conversation. When closing time came, I asked Isabella if she could give me a ride home. On the way, she mentioned that most of the crew preferred our bar over others in town because it wasn't focused on the university crowd. That made me happy, knowing word of mouth was helping expand our customer base. Sunday morning, I woke up to find Michelle gone, but I wasn't surprised. I spent a couple of hours pretending to be concerned, calling her family and confiding in Isabella. While I was talking to her, I got another call, this time from my father-in-law. "Hey, Dad," I answered. "Still no word from her?" "No, Mike," he replied. "That's why I'm calling. Mary and I decided to have brunch at the Starlight Inn on 4th, but we wish we hadn't. Michelle's car is parked here." "Sorry, Dad. I'm stuck without my truck, so I can't make it. You two go ahead and enjoy lunch." "I'll catch up later," I said, trying to sound concerned. My father-in-law was a strict man, seeing the world in black and white. He had a strong sense of right and wrong, and though he wasn't happy about some of the things going on in society, he was a firm believer in responsibility and order. We often debated law and order, but his strict beliefs never wavered. If he catches her with another man, I thought to myself, he might react badly. I filled him in on Michelle's secret outings and sent him some of the evidence I had. After that, I updated Isabella, who laughed and asked what I was up to. "Not much, just smiling at how things are playing out," I replied. "Want me to pick you up so we can hang out?" she offered. "I'd love to, but it's probably best if I stay put for now, given how worried everyone is." It was around 6 p.m. when I sat down in the kitchen with a slice of pizza. A car pulled into the driveway, and peeking out, I saw Michelle's dad getting out of the driver's seat. He looked utterly defeated. "Come on in, Dad," I said, welcoming him inside and offering him a slice of pizza and some Maker's whiskey. "It's serious, Mike," he began. "After we talked, I spoke with Laura, and it turns out my suspicions were right. I had the hotel manager check with the night manager, and it's confirmed, Michelle's been having an affair for over 6 months. Laura knew and kept quiet, thinking Michelle just wanted to live a carefree life before settling down. I acted shocked, though part of me was genuinely surprised by Laura's honesty. As I was leaving the hotel, Michelle showed up with her lover. She had this smug look on her face, like she'd just won a prize. I was so furious, I almost passed out. It took both managers to pull me away. "I figured you'd come here since it's the last place anyone would think to look," he continued. "Dad, I'll call Mom and let her know you're safe. Then, I'll talk to the Starlight Inn manager and see if we can press charges," I reassured him. My mother-in-law was heartbroken but relieved her husband had come to see me. Michelle called to apologize, but her mom wasn't having any of it. "Your apology means nothing," she said. "You've caused enough trouble already." Later, I called Jason Roberts to settle a small debt, and he joked about his sister, reminding me she never forgets. "You should pay me in front of her, just to get it out of the way," he suggested. "Why?" I asked. "It'll save us both a lot of trouble," he replied, laughing. Jason then told me that no charges had been filed and that Rob had agreed not to press any, thanks to Michelle's intervention. I thanked him and shared the news with Michelle's dad. He seemed relieved. "What's your plan to fix this?" he asked, visibly concerned. I pulled out my phone and showed him a message I had drafted for Michelle. It read, "Dad just told me everything. Congratulations, you've managed to tear our family apart in a single day. Don't come home. The Michelle I knew is gone. If you choose him over us, our marriage ends now. Otherwise, it's a slow road over the next 6 months." I sent the message, knowing full well that once trust is broken, it can never fully be restored. "Let's end this marriage swiftly and with dignity," he declared after reading it. That evening, after pizza and drinks, we headed out to get new deadbolt locks for the house. Once they were installed, Laura and her parents, Brandon and Mary, showed up with their cats in tow. They left around 10 p.m., and I texted Isabella to see if she was still awake. She called me back almost immediately. "Are you okay?" she asked. Jason filled me in. "Rob's got 2 black eyes and a broken nose," your father-in-law decked him before Jason stepped in. I chuckled. "He used a box when he was younger. I would have loved to see that." "He came to your place after the incident, didn't he?" she asked. "Yeah, he was a mess. But I learned from your brother that no charges were filed, so I updated the family. They had a meeting to discuss it, but they've all gone home now." "What about Michelle?" Isabella asked. I showed her dad the message I sent to Michelle. "He agreed with it, said it was the right call," I replied. "Couldn't you give her another chance?" she asked. "Maybe she could earn back your trust?" "No, Isabella. To him, trust is black and white. She made her choice, and now she'll have to live with the consequences. I'm with him on this." He even helped me change the locks. Any updates from last night? Isabella asked. I haven't had a chance to check yet. I've been swamped, I replied with a laugh. But I suppose it doesn't matter now. I'll give it until Monday night. From what I've heard, it might surprise you, she hinted. The bartender at Rivertown Brandon's has a history with some interesting videos. If that's true, it wouldn't shock me if he got footage of everything, I said. You bet, Mike, she replied, laughing. Anyway, when's our official first date? How about on the day Michelle gets served the divorce papers? I suggested with a grin. I'll even arrange for her to get served at the office. Don't forget the red roses you're sending beforehand. I want to make it crystal clear that she violated your trust, Isabella remarked, a hint of playfulness in her voice. Tomorrow at work should be interesting, I mused. After the call ended, I reflected on what I knew about Isabella. She was around 24, unmarried, and attractive. Standing about 5 feet 8 inches, she wasn't overly slim, but she had the kind of figure my grandfather would have called just right for starting a family. Despite working in the same regional office as Michelle and Rob, Isabella wasn't part of the management team, as far as I knew. She kept her circle tight, mostly family and close friends, and she was discerning about who she let into her life. She enjoyed dancing and drinking, much like I did, and though she was sociable, there was something about her, an air of caution that left me with more questions than answers. She seemed to be more educated than her job suggested, hinting at some hidden layers. As I got ready for bed, I hummed to myself, wondering what Isabella's real game was. Monday was going to be full of challenges, but I had already arranged for my assistant to manage the bar so I could take care of personal matters. On Monday morning, Laura, Michelle's sister, arrived with her husband's truck to help me pack up Michelle's belongings. We stopped by a store to grab packing supplies and headed back to the house, starting with the master bedroom. While I assembled the boxes, Laura sorted through Michelle's dresser drawers. Mike, I'm so sorry about what my sister did, Laura said, her voice full of regret. I never approved of it, but I kept my mouth shut, hoping she'd snap out of it. When Dad told me about the message you sent her, I broke down and finally confessed the truth to him. I've known about the affair for a month, but I didn't know what to do. I paused for a moment before responding. Laura, I'm still trying to process all of this. The night Michelle texted you asking for an alibi, I was at the bar, just scouting the competition. I took that photo of her with Rob, thinking I'd use it to confront her. I never imagined things would unravel like this. Laura sighed, shaking her head. Dad thinks he failed in raising her, and Mom feels the same way. They both blame themselves. I can't say I'm not hurt, but at the same time, I know this wasn't my fault, I said, trying to sound reassuring. Didn't you tell her that the bar had been broken into and was closed? Laura asked. I did, but looking back, I realized she heard me, she just chose not to care. It was her way of signaling the end of our marriage, I replied. Michelle has always been shielded by her father, just like I was. Laura believes I needed to experience parenthood to truly understand the sacrifices her dad made. I've always tried to pass on those values to my kids. But even when she was young, Michelle lacked a clear sense of right and wrong, and I guess I wish I'd noticed it earlier. I paused, thinking back. I've often thought about your parents. Not many people can say their father-in-law is one of their closest friends. As Laura reached Michelle's more revealing clothing, she asked me for a pair of sewing scissors, which I quickly handed over. She then proceeded to cut the lap in the middle of the bras, sending a clear message to her sister. All the altered garments were thrown into a box. I appreciated the gesture because, honestly, I couldn't bring myself to do it. It took us about 4 hours to get halfway through packing Michelle's things, so I suggested grabbing lunch before we continued. Laura agreed, and we went to a new Chinese restaurant called Golden Dragon Bistro, which offered a great selection of food at reasonable prices. As we pulled into the parking lot, we bumped into Rob, sporting 2 black eyes, a broken nose, and swollen lips. My father-in-law had definitely left his mark. Laura, did my dad do that to him? She asked, looking at Rob's injuries in disbelief. Yeah, I replied. It'll take him a couple of months to heal. From what I heard, your dad only hit him 3 times before others stepped in. Laura looked surprised. If they hadn't stopped him, do you think Rob would be in the hospital? I don't know, I said, stepping out of the car. As we headed to the restaurant, Rob saw us and came over, trying to talk to Laura. "Have you met my brother-in-law Mike?" she asked, as I stepped forward. Rob's face turned pale when he realized I was the one driving Michelle's car that night. He raised his fist, ready for a fight. "If that's how you want it, Rob, fine. Laura will confirm you started it," I said. As soon as she agreed, I swiftly kicked him in the groin and followed up with 2 punches to the face. I didn't hold back, throwing a flurry of blows until he collapsed, finishing with one last strike to end it. Feeling a sense of release, I walked inside with Laura, and we were seated shortly after. I ordered unsweetened tea, while she got a cola. "Did my dad teach you those moves?" Laura asked. "Not exactly, but part of my job is handling trouble when it shows up. I didn't want a fair fight, I wanted to finish it quickly," I explained. As we filled our plates at the buffet, my phone rang. It was Michelle, but I ignored the call. "I bet her boyfriend already called to tell her what happened," I said. "Too bad he won't be giving her much of anything for a while." Laura burst out laughing, drawing the attention of nearby diners. "That was hilarious," she giggled. "I almost peed myself." "Glad you didn't," I teased. "How would you explain that to Brandon?" "I would have yelled flash flood," she joked, still laughing. After lunch, we finished packing up Michelle's things by 5 p.m., then drove over to Brandon's storage unit to unload everything. I paid the deposit and rent, leaving the keys with the owner. I sent Michelle a quick update via text, then got a call from my insurance company with a low offer for my totaled truck. I asked for a replacement with similar mileage, knowing it would cost them more in the long run. When I got back home, Isabella and Emily were waiting outside. I introduced them to Laura, explaining they were Michelle's co-workers, and invited everyone inside. Laura called Brandon to update him on the situation, and we all relaxed with a few beers. "We came to check on you," Isabella said, "and see if you wanted to join us for dinner," Emily added. "It's been a rough day for a lot of people. Rob got seriously hurt this morning," Emily continued. "He went to the hospital this afternoon, and Michelle was apparently out apartment hunting during lunch." "I can't say I feel sorry for any of them," Laura replied. "We spent the day moving Michelle's things into storage. Mike even let me pack her underwear, making it easy access for her future boyfriends." Isabella then explained that she had notified their company via email about Rob and Michelle's misconduct. She had attached a picture of Rob's beaten face, courtesy of Michelle's father. She made it clear that office romances, especially long-term affairs, were unacceptable. "Do you hate my sister that much?" Laura asked. "No," Isabella replied. "I dislike her behavior. I grew up in a family where we were always responsible for our actions. If we did something good, we were praised. If we did something wrong, we faced the consequences. I just think they've gotten away with this for too long." I excused myself to take a call from the bar, and later, Isabella filled me in on what I had missed. Laura, out of nowhere, asked Isabella a question. "So, Isabella, how long have you been in love with Mike?" Isabella didn't hesitate. "The night I met him. He had just found out about his wife's affair. I watched him hold his anger in check, choosing not to confront her publicly. Instead, he deflated her tires, showing restraint and consideration. He didn't want me involved and was prepared to face the consequences alone. That night, we talked, and he never cursed or humiliated her. He was just focused on gathering the evidence he needed to explain to her father why Michelle didn't want kids. Mike has always been that way," Laura added. "He's a peacemaker, even when he's hurting. You have my blessing, Isabella, but if you hurt him, I won't hesitate to step in. When your father found out about Michelle and Rob, he came straight here to be with Mike," Isabella revealed. "Did you know he was the one who sent the text that ended their marriage?" Laura asked. "No, I didn't," Isabella replied. "That explains why they never discussed reconciliation." I turned to Laura. "Call Brandon and the kids to meet us at the bar. I'm cooking dinner for everyone, including Emily and Isabella." After changing into more comfortable clothes, I returned to find Laura gone and Emily in the kitchen. Isabella had tidied up, and we exchanged a few words of appreciation. "I really like your sister," Isabella said. "I think we'll be good friends." "She speaks highly of you too," I replied as Isabella hugged me. We shared a moment that hinted at what might come next. Walking hand in hand, we headed to the car with Emily. Isabella took the front seat, while I sat in the back, feeling a sense of anticipation. "You two are taking things slow, huh?" Emily remarked. Yeah, small steps, Isabella replied. We want to figure this mess out before rushing into anything. I want to be a stay-at-home mom with a husband who shares my values. When we arrived at Brandon's house, his kids greeted us excitedly. Laura mentioned how well I connect with her daughters, often calming them down. We all noticed the need for more bar stools, as the place was getting crowded. Later, the shepherd's pie received rave reviews, even from the older patrons. Sitting next to Isabella, we shared a dessert made by the chef. She tasted my drink and was surprised to find it was non-alcoholic. You're still sticking to that promise, huh? She whispered. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked proud. My assistant reported that bar sales had increased, and we had made over $1,000 in food sales alone. I paid my bill with my debit card, leaving a 20% tip and emphasizing to my employees the importance of honesty. Not everyone agrees with that, Isabella said, but if you really think about it, it adds up. Afterward, Emily and Isabella drove me home. Once inside, I checked my email and found a video from a bartender named Brandon. The footage showed everything that happened on Saturday night and was titled Surviving University Night. It featured Michelle and Rob, and I noticed the video was being sold on an adult site. It even included contracts that had been legally witnessed. I texted Isabella to update her, noting that Michelle would make sure her parents never saw the video. Tomorrow, I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer, Isabella shared. Emily and I are leaving Rob. The FDA is stepping in on Wednesday, and they want us out before they execute any warrants. They already know where to look. Isabella left around 1 a.m. On Tuesday, I sorted out the rental car with the insurance company and headed to the lawyer's office to start the divorce process. I was the first to arrive, and she asked me for proof. So, I recounted the entire story and let her listen to my conversation with my father-in-law. I also provided printouts from the Starlight Inn. It would strengthen our position if she agrees to my proposed settlement, I explained. We should arrange a meeting with her and her attorney to show them what's on this flash drive. It shows everything that happened last Saturday night. I've already forwarded them the confirmation email. What makes you so sure she won't contest this? My feminist lawyer asked. Take the flash drive home and watch the 2-hour video yourself, I said. I keep the business, and she gets the house. No alimony. And if she refuses, she pressed. Then every family member will get an anonymous copy, I said, standing up to leave. Mike, she sighed. Are you always this ruthless? Only when someone's actions leave me no choice, I responded. She's made me realize that the last 12 years of my life were mostly a waste. Meanwhile, Isabella and Emily resigned from their jobs in person. Michelle, the office manager, was stunned by their sudden departure, knowing it would be difficult to replace them. Rob, still visibly injured, spent the day in his office fielding calls from headquarters. He knew his position was safe because of family ties, but he was told he would either have to marry Michelle or fire her after the divorce was finalized. After leaving my lawyer's office, I met with a real estate broker I knew. I wanted to see what office buildings were available for sale in the area. He mentioned one building that had potential if the new owner could find a solid anchor tenant. It was only 5 blocks from downtown and was currently owned by the bank I was dealing with. The broker said the bank was getting tired of holding onto the property. With a bit of interior painting and landscaping, the 3-story building could attract some attention. After taking a closer look, I agreed to move forward. We went back to his office and drew up a proposal with a low price, contingent on financing and inspection approval. He handed me the keys, telling me to show a potential client the space at 2 p.m. the next day. I texted Isabella, asking if she and Emily could stop by the bar. I've got something to show you both, I wrote. She quickly replied with a sure. I then called my father-in-law to see if he had a couple of hours to spare. He asked why, so I explained that I might have to sell the bar to settle the divorce and that I was getting ready for a fresh start. I told him about the office building I was considering and wanted his opinion. He agreed, and I picked him up. As we walked through the building, checking out the electrical work, he pointed out a few things the inspector might miss but could be used as bargaining chips. He asked what they were asking for, and I told him my offer. Smart move, he said. You can always go up, but you can't go down. Personally, I think you should go for it. You'll need a couple of strong tenants. Got anyone in mind? Just 2 ladies starting their own accounting firm, who are currently working with me and Michelle, I said. If I end up having to sell the bar, they might be my new tenants. He grinned. If you secure it, I'll help with the renovations. It's more spacious than your current spot, and it has plenty of parking. Laura speaks highly of them, she thinks they're trustworthy. Thanks, Dad, I said. Do you think Michelle will try to claim the business in the divorce? The Michelle you once knew? Probably not. But the one you're divorcing? She might, I replied. She'll try to justify her actions by shifting the blame onto me. My father-in-law looked taken aback. That's not true. That's not what you and I know. No, it's not, I agreed. But name one scenario, outside of a legal contract, where the truth actually affects the outcome. You can't. And neither can I. In divorce proceedings, it's all about what the judge believes. If Michelle and I had kids, I'd be doomed in any court's eyes. It's not fair, he lamented. Dad, I know, I said. We share the same values. But we're in the minority. The world used to benefit from a shared sense of right and wrong, but those days are long gone. Just look at the rising homelessness in California. People think it's a promised land, but the reality is nothing like what the media shows them. Later at the bar, my realtor called to inform me that the offer had been accepted, but the bank wouldn't provide financing despite my long-term loyalty. So, I started looking for other financing options through LendingTree and submitted my tax returns for the past 5 years. Isabella, Emily, and I walked through the vacant ground floor of the building I was looking to purchase. It had once been a call center, and I outlined my vision for a new bar and restaurant while asking them about their office space needs. We can't afford the finishing costs, Emily admitted. That's why we're looking for move-in ready options. Determined, I told them I would cover the expenses myself. As the bar gains traction, we'll figure it out, I said. I'll know about the financing by Friday. I'm hoping to get the building below its appraised value. Michelle's dad has offered to help with construction, which will reduce costs significantly. Why go through all this? Isabella asked. The court might force me to sell the bar as part of the divorce settlement, so I'm planning ahead, I explained. Draft your office needs for the next 2 years, and I'll work from there. Emily raised another possibility. What if you don't have to sell the bar? My assistant's promotion and my surgery made contingency planning necessary, I replied, wincing at the thought of Wednesday's upcoming pain. On Wednesday, Michelle, along with her parents and the FDA, made rounds to all regional offices and headquarters. She also received a copy of my divorce petition, which cited infidelity as the reason. By Friday, Michelle and Rob had left for headquarters to finalize the deal. I managed to secure an additional $250,000 for remodeling the new space. We began interior renovations on the ground floor, stripping it down to the concrete walls. Our draftsman drew up plans that included an elevator shaft for the 3 floors and additional plumbing for Isabella and Emily's office space. Contractors installed 2 entrances, one from the street and another from the lobby. We had to excavate the concrete for the elevator shaft and build an interior wall at the same time. Isabella and Emily continued to fly to Washington every Sunday, returning on Fridays to assist as much as they could. Negotiations between Michelle's lawyer and mine were getting nowhere. Fed up, I arranged a meeting between all parties, prepared for confrontation. After completing the elevator shaft, we sandblasted the building to restore its original color and refresh the red brick. The crew upgraded the flat roof and then moved on to the interior work. Isabella's office featured restrooms, a lunchroom, a reception area, and 6 offices. My section included public restrooms, a storage area, a band platform, and a dance floor. Contractors finished her section in just 2 weeks. 2 more office buildings were acquired nearby, and 2 were sold and converted into a new Bank of America branch. The local newspaper praised the neighborhood's redevelopment. My meeting with Michelle and her lawyer was scheduled for Friday. Kitchen equipment had arrived and was set up on the white-tiled floor. An oak bar counter was being built, and dark pine laminate flooring was being laid. Electrical work on both sides of the space was complete, and the tables, chairs, and booths were set for delivery on Monday. All of this had been achieved in less than 2 months. My real estate agent secured a long-term tenant, a legal team that would occupy the 2nd and 3rd floors, covering the mortgage, taxes, and associated expenses. At a meeting with my attorney, Michelle claimed she wanted me to embrace fatherhood. I listened to her claims with skepticism and laughed when she said she had been on birth control when she conceived. I proposed a DNA test to verify her claim, then instructed my attorney to reveal the contents of the flash drive I had provided. Michelle paled when she learned that the video had over 2 million views, each generating $5.99 in revenue. Since we were still legally married at the time, I asserted my right to 5% of the proceeds from her one-night adventure, as it was considered a marital asset. I gave her the weekend to propose a fair settlement, or else I would make the video public on Tuesday. The room went silent. "I know who the father of your child is, Michelle," I said firmly. "His name is Rob." With that, I turned to leave. 10 minutes later, my divorce attorney called. "Mike," she said, "Michelle's offer is $350,000 in exchange for you keeping the bar and staying quiet about certain matters. She also wants you to relinquish your rights to the video. Draw up the settlement," I instructed, "but hold on to the funds until I'm satisfied." "When will the divorce be finalized?" I asked, eager to move on. "I'll schedule a court date, but it won't be official until 30 days have passed. After the judge approves," the attorney explained. Dressed sharply, I stood at the airport, waiting for Isabella and Emily's arrival with roses in hand, red for Isabella and yellow for Emily. Their faces lit up when they saw me, and I greeted them, holding out checks symbolizing our financial agreements. With luggage in tow, we headed to my new sedan, purchased with the cash settlement I found acceptable. "Before we head home, I want to show you your finished offices," I told them. "The rest of the building is rented out to a group of lawyers." Isabella asked about the losses, and I couldn't help but laugh, confirming they were indeed significant. In a later meeting with our lawyers, I presented evidence of Michelle's earnings from the video, arguing that since it was filmed during our marriage, I was entitled to 50% of the income. Isabella shed tears of relief as I explained our new situation. I would retain the business, the house, and receive an additional $350,000. Michelle had a week to remove any furniture she wanted from the house. "What are your plans for the house?" Isabella asked. "I'll sell it," I replied. "I don't want old memories to hold us back from moving forward." Tears of joy streamed down Isabella's face. Emily, usually reserved, became emotional when she saw their newly finished offices. The warm, professional space, adorned with oak and pastel colors, impressed them both. "All that's left is naming the business, registering it, and getting office furniture and equipment," I said with a smile. "You ladies have a good eye for colors," Isabella said, embracing me. "I love you." I nodded and kissed her, signaling the end of holding back. Later, I accompanied Emily to Isabella's house, where they both now lived. It was Isabella's first time traveling home with me. We spent hours talking, catching up, and opening up to each other. After breakfast at our favorite deli, I took her to Harrison Jewelers to look at rings. She found one she loved but hesitated at the price. I insisted on buying it, envisioning it as a future gift for our daughter's 16th birthday. Even the salesperson was moved as she processed the sale. The first person Isabella called to share the news with was Emily. We agreed to meet at Willow Creek Tavern at 6 p.m., and I suggested she invite her parents. I was eager for them to meet me, the man who convinced them to come back home. I also called John, my former father-in-law, and his wife, whom I still referred to as Mom and Dad, inviting them over. They happily accepted, and I shared with them that Michelle and I had reached a divorce agreement set for next week. Upon learning that Michelle and Rob had announced their engagement, though they hadn't spoken to her family, I asked Laura to bring the whole family. I arranged for the chef to prepare a special meal, explaining the occasion. He promised a traditional Irish lamb stew and cedar cookies, with his own twist. The bartender was instructed to serve Irish coffee with fresh cream, except for me. Unexpectedly, a private table was reserved for us at the back of the restaurant for added privacy. John and Mary, my in-laws, arrived first, allowing me to introduce Isabella to them. The surprise came when Isabella's well-known parents, Kevin and Jocelyn Roberts, joined us. Apparently, John had kept them informed while at work. When Brandon and Laura arrived with their kids, the little ones rushed toward me, embracing me tightly. Isabella opened her arms, and they gravitated to her as well. During the lavish dinner, we shared the news of Isabella's engagement, stunning everyone with the size of the ring. Isabella explained how it happened, and my response brought her mother to tears, earning approval from the relatives. When Isabella said it was fine for me to call her parents Mom and Dad, I assured them they would always hold that title for me. The exceptional food, as always, delighted us. When the bill arrived, Kevin insisted on covering it. I wanted to protest, but a nudge from Isabella stopped me. After everyone left, except her parents, we recounted the full story. Kevin asked why I never drank Irish coffee, and Isabella explained my policy of abstaining from alcohol in my own establishments to set an example for my employees. Impressed, Kevin joked that our restaurant was a perfect fit for his daughter and praised both the office design and my principles. John, looking at me with admiration, told me he regarded me as the son he never had. "You're someone who stands firm in his values," he said. Off the record, John was the father figure I never had growing up. Raised by my mother after my father left us before they were even married, I grew up in a poor household. Meeting John through Michelle had taught me invaluable lessons about strength and integrity. He wasn't my father by blood, but by choice, and I owed much of my moral compass to him. We stood in silence for a moment until the ladies returned. Then Kevin spoke, expressing his approval of my relationship with Isabella. He welcomed me into their family, a gesture that left Isabella in shock, as he had never approved of anyone before. We spent the night together, and it was hard to see her leave. Isabella and Emily aimed to leave the FDA on good terms. I listed the house on Monday, signed a divorce agreement on Wednesday, and received the trust funds by Friday. I watched as the judge finalized the divorce. Michelle didn't show up. I picked up my assistant and showed him the layout for the new bar. He agreed to manage it for $75,000 a year, plus a 10% bonus based on net income. Mike's Bar and Grill was born. 3 years later, Corbin and the accounting firm thrived, while Mike's Bar and Grill became a local favorite. Meanwhile, Michelle and Rob's marriage crumbled when she caught him cheating with her best friend. Despite this, her family remained distant. The birth of our twins brought joy to our lives, even amidst the challenges. During labor, Isabella playfully called me names, and we proudly introduced our red-haired babies to the rest of the family.